Hey everybody, this is Carl back again to start the holiday Christmas movie review. Took care of all my Halloween theme reviews in October, and I took care of all my Thanksgiving family November review month, which you can check it out, all those up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Like and subscribe, share this with your friends, and let me know what you guys think of all those movies, comics, etc. That I did for those themes. Or just check out all my other reviews that I put out up on the stream, up on my channels. But now, even though it's technically, as of right now, November 30th, might as well just get to jump on it now, starting the Christmas theme movie review month. There's gonna be some classics that we know, and there's gonna be some Hallmark Lifetime movies I want to review this year mixed in as well. So from now going into December 31st, all Christmas related movie reviews. I'm gonna try to see if I can squeeze in a comic, depending, because my first Christmas, well, not like, I think my second Christmas comic book review I did is Klaus. I think it was Boom Studios comic with the origin of Santa Claus. I tried to do a sequel to that, but it was very short story form. Want to check other stories in that realm and see I can get like a lengthy review out of it. If not, I might as well skip it. But my first comic book review for the Christmas theme month was Batman Noel, which is one of my favorite Batman stories ever. You can check that out on my channel. It's one of my earliest comic book reviews. So pardon a little, like, I was still getting my footing, so just bear with me if you want to check out that review. But it's one of my favorites. Part of me wants to do like a redo of that, part of me, and I've been thinking about that, at least I don't know, it kind of sprung up on me at some point this year. Can't tell you exactly when, but part of me wants to reread that, mostly for the enjoyment, but also to kind of like on a rare occasion, because I've only done this with like a couple of video games walkthroughs I did, want to do that over, because I was like too new to the review game, so I want to redo that one. Um, uh, but we'll see. Don't quote me on that, but it's something I've been pondering about. Anyway, the first movie I'll be doing, well, it's part of a trilogy. Now it's currently like a TV show based off of it, but the first movie is the Tim Allen 1994 movie, The Santa Claus. Now, of course, I'll be going through the next two sequels as well in the next getting into well, normally I do like reviews each week, but given the fact that it's like a decent amount, because I got like a decent amount of reviews for the this month's Christmas reviews, and yeah, I gotta make sure I can squeeze in some time. So maybe Saturday I can get the other two Santa Claus's films out to you guys. Be a little frequent, usually frequent reviews for the month of December, depending on how much free time I have. but I think I can fit it in here. At least make sure I get them out the way so I can have a room for other stuff. Anyway, The Santa Claus. Directed by John Pasquin. Got Tim Allen as Scott Calvin, aka Santa Claus. Eric Lloyd as Charlie Calvin. Wendy Crewson as Laura Miller. Judge Reinhold as Dr. Neil Miller. David Krumholtz as Bernard the Head Elf. And you got Peter Boyle as Calvin's boss, Mr. Whittle. Which, by the way, this guy literally come back in the next film as Father Time, which something like, good. You couldn't really fit in like a role, like a minor role for another old man to fit in the role for Father Time. Like, we wouldn't recognize the same dude who played like a different character in the previous film. I find that odd. But anyway, Scott works as a marketing exec, a marketing director of a toy company. Usually things like this tracks. And of course, you know, back in the 90s and like getting into the early 2000s, movies have been, especially children's movies, have been playing kind of like a same note. And it's kind of like a weird coincidence. It is not that too dissimilar to the same thing with after Home Alone first came out, which I reviewed the first 3 Home Alone films up on my channel. You can check out my reviews on those. But in those, after the first Home Alone movie, there's been like a whole slew of movies that has like a smart alecky little kid who's bright for his age and outsmarting the supposed adults in his life, kind of thing. There's been a whole slew of those kind of things because of Macaulay Culkin and Christopher Columbus. Here, movies like this, where you got like kind of like, it's very similar to like Jingle All the Way, another movie I reviewed, which you can check out on the channel, where it's like this overworked father who seems to be very neglectful of the kid and goes out of his way to make sure the kid, has a good childhood and make sure he doesn't screw anything up. That trope seems to have been like, and then usually they have like, relationship trouble with, like, either have like a relationship on the rocks, or they divorced or about to be divorced, that kind of thing. It's just like that trope was played a lot in the 90s. So you got it here where he's like, supposed to be getting ready to because picking up Charlie for visitations, because him and his ex-wife Laura has long since split. She remarried to a guy named Dr. Neil Miller. And of course, there's another trope that's been played a lot, where it's like, oh, he's a therapist. Of course, back in the day, therapists wasn't taken very seriously because, like, oh, only crazy people go to therapy. Now, after the past like several years, especially after 2020, people have been like, hitting those therapy sessions hard, where it's like everybody's going through something and it's fully more embraced this day and age than back in the 90s and even earlier than that, where it's like, oh, that's not real doctors, or like chiropractors not real doctors, or dentists are not real doctors. It's always been like a joke played to death. We didn't notice it at first, but it's something that does now, looking back on it, it's like, wow, we did a lot of that back then, or at least we watched a lot of that back then. It seems like the old gag, thankfully, has been put to rest. But as I'll bring it up here, but so he is like driving in, and this is like Lakeside, Illinois, and he has like very light traffic, no traffic at all, but he's pretending like, oh, he's obviously running late. He's supposed to have been ready to pick up Charlie for his part of visitation, having Neil and Laura waiting forever. And so he just now arriving after coming from a Christmas Eve party at his job, which I guess he had to be there, but he didn't explain. I'm imagining he explained to Laura, but it's just like he seems like not unattentive, but it's just like his priorities seem askew a bit. Not like it's completely out of whack, but it's just like Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Jingle All the Way. He loves his family, he adores his family, and especially his kid, but he's working hard and he can't set some time out because Christmas Eve. And you imagine people got to go home to their families. Not sure why this got to hold a party so late. But he eventually shows up. Of course, he pokes fun at the new husband, and that was played to death back in the day too, when like, oh, the new husband or new wife, they're looked on as disgust, because more often than not they play like villains in these kind of films back in the day. But on rare occasions, like Mrs. Doubtfire, and like I did a review on that, check that out too, and this movie, where the new beau is not terrible not terrible people. So it's just more so like just poking fun. There's no ill animosity. It was just like oh, you're kind of messing around with my ex-wife, but clearly these two, the marriage kind of like ran its course, unfortunately, where it's like they obviously could not get along. You see them immediately bickering after, because he really went in on her, which is kind of like not fair. But she's telling Scott about how Charlie came home in tears because some bully told him there was no Santa Claus, and Neil, trying to help, being a therapist, is like, oh, well, Santa Claus is a state of mind and everything like that, which kids reach to a certain point when their belief in Santa Claus gets a little rocky, especially those who grew up in like very impoverished. So it's like, oh, why would I believe in a Santa Claus? Because like we live in like a jacked up situation, and we gotta believe in some fat white dude to come deliver presents. And it's like, wow, very bon humbug of you. But well, if you got kids watching this, cover their ears or skip 5 minutes ahead. But here we go. The mythical figure of Santa Claus might be unbelievable, but we just carry on in the spirit of the guy who was real, because there was a Saint Nicholas type of dude, and it's like very, I'm not sure the exact year, you can easily look this up. There was a Saint Nicholas guy, I'm pretty sure he went by, he was given the sainthood after his passing. It was a guy who have This is way before even like the Renaissance. This is like very, very old. Whereas this dude just like, went house to house and just left, you know, gifts or toys or something of the sort in a house at night. And it just grew into the myth of Santa Claus, which we pass down the story over time, and it becomes like a big figure, uh, uh, a huge figure over time to what we know now, and we just carry on that tradition. Uh, so, so that's how I would explain to my kids, future kids. It was like when they start questioning things, I'll just lay it out like that. Like, yeah, they used to be a guy like that, but like he was a normal man. He eventually died, and we just carried on the tradition. That's why they call him a saint, because he did something like that level of good in the world. And I guess the Pope at the time, because popes are the ones that give sainthoods, at least from my recollection. And that's where we carry on that tradition since then. Kind of in a way of his honor. Of and of course that was like a pagan thing, and then the Christianity kind of eventually adopted it, and then we got this whole holiday. So Neil telling Charlie, oh, this is Santa Claus is a state of mind. And of course Scott, a little Pete O, even though he doesn't believe anymore, he still doesn't want to shatter Charlie's illusion, because he's still very young, and he should be too young at this point to reach that moment of start believing. He expected to at least wait until he's reaching his 12 or 13 or something like that. Very young at this point, so he doesn't want to shatter that illusionment and wonderment. So they get into an argument, which happened nearby with the kid, and clearly given the kid's performance, which is pretty good, where it's like it's not his first rodeo experiencing his parents fighting. And obviously probably was young enough to be privy to that, because kids are not dumb and they hear things. And so they try their best to make sure they okay, oh look, we're not fighting, we're just having a very loud your mom was just singing very loudly kind of thing. But clearly Charlie doesn't like staying around with his father. He's just like eager to get this night over with so his mom can come pick him up in the morning. This is very like sad. It was like clearly like the father's probably like not attentive as he probably should be. So he takes the kid out to Denny's because he couldn't cook worth to save his life, even though he should probably, like I said, he's not attentive. It's like knowing full well he's gonna have like it would be his visitation time pretty soon. He probably should have something prepared for the kid so they have something to eat. So because especially if it's Christmas Eve, you expect to have Christmas dinner. So they go out to Denny's, and you see like a bunch of other kids with their fathers, and knowing that they probably couldn't cook worth a damn. So the night ends with Scott reading The Night Before Christmas to his kid, and of course now the kid asking a whole bunch of questions about Santa Claus, and do you believe, and what's a rose-colored ladder that came such a clatter, and asking what's a clatter, and of course kids like at the age will start asking 1,000,000,001 questions, because they they are very reach the age of like curiosity. But then late at night they hear rumbling on the roof. They go outside and they see Santa. He gets spooked and he falls off the roof and seemingly dies. And then Scott finds his business card and says like, If anything happens to me, put on the suit and the reindeers will know what to do. And they see the reindeers on the roof, and and the body of Santa Claus disappears. And of course, it's like never seen again, never even seen the guy's face. With all this, I never watched the Santa Claus TV show. They recently, last year they started. I think this year they did like a second season. I'm surprised they even had like a second season. It's short, but I never watched it. I didn't care to, because the third one kind of like, okay, I'm done. And it should have been done a long time ago. Tim Allen does an impressive Santa Claus, and like growing up on this, he's been like my, in my mind's eye, what Santa Claus will probably look like. Or at least it's kind of like everybody got their own ideal vision of Batman, or who they see as like their true Superman. Like some people think of Christopher Reeve, some people think of Henry Cavill, or some people think of Bale as their Batman, or some people think Kevin Conroy as their Batman. Tim Allen is the, like the Santa Claus in my mind. So it's very weird, because like the dead Santa, I say seemingly because when they're not looking, he gives this little subtle wave, and before he disappears. And never since we ever see this guy ever again. Don't know his face. And I guess it's good for the mystery of it all, but it's like, I don't know about the TV shows. It doesn't seem clear to explain who was the, or at least lead into like a topic of who was the previous Santa Claus and what's his story. That part would have been a better thing, a storyline for the TV show, because they kind of, the premise on the TV show, from what I remember, based on, Scott Calvin want to retire essentially. But it's like you not play to that same thing where you want to give up Santa Claus, but it's just like he was forced to give that power up in the third film. And it's like, God, I want to get past that. As roughly the same premise. It would have been a greater premise if you explore who the previous Santa Claus was and what's his story, and explore that. That'd been a little bit more interesting. You never told that story before. And who was his Mrs. Santa Claus? I don't think, maybe he probably didn't have one, but there's so much to explore with that, in my opinion. But anyway, they go on the roof, and of course, Charlie's a kid, so it's like, he's just like, it's like, come on, do this, Dad. Let's go help everybody, Dad. And it's like, not listen to his son and his father when he says like, don't climb on the roof, stop. And he just keeps on going. And it's like, I can't imagine this kid not getting like a spanking once in a while. Because he's not listening to his kid when his father, when he says stop climbing on the ladder, don't go on the roof, and he's still going. He's that hard-headed. But then like you get this moment where Scott mentioned how the whole stupid the scenario is, but the kid took it as like, why is everything that I want to do stupid? And of course, kudos to the actor, especially when he was this small kid, and he played very well, where it's like, you feel bad, because it's like, kids are not, kids are stupid, but they're not stupid, if that makes any sense. They're inexperienced, they're not mature, but they're not stupid. That's the difference. They might do stupid things, but they're not stupid, because they don't know any better. But the fact that this small kid pointed out a very real thing, where a lot of adults can understand, it's like, what I want to do should not feel stupid in your eyes. So he puts on the suit, because the Rangers eventually took off, on command, because now it's like he's now like the official Santa, technically. And so now they gotta finish up all these gift deliveries, uh, and the reindeer eventually takes them all the way back to the North Pole, where they meet Bernard, who a lot of people remember Bernard. He really is a standout in this film. But then the next two films, he just disappeared altogether. Never heard from him again. Maybe there's a reason why behind the scenes, but it just seems so weird. He like a lot of people who remember this film really like Bernard because he's like that, no nonsense kind of boss, but with a heart of gold kind of situation. Even though he has like a, you know, kind of like a, how do I put it? Well, you just like shouting or being kind of, mean in a way. Like I mean, like, borderline disrespectful. I don't want to say fully disrespectful, but it's just like, you know, like it's like a stick up his butt in a way when he's dealing with nonsense. But it's like, dude, like I don't know who you're shouting at, but you need to chill. But I also look at it in a way as which the movie could have played it in a way where it's like he's the head elf. So he would have been the previous Santa's right-hand man. And everybody seems very nonchalant about the fact that the Santa Claus, which you would imagine they worked with a very, very, very long time, given Santa Claus is immortal. And so is, to a certain extent, the elves, because they live a very long time kind of situation. Nobody ever speaks on the lifespan of an elf. Just the fact that, in certain iterations, they appeared like very old looking, like gnomes, like in certain animated films, like, Arthur's Christmas. There's been a few old elves, and other occasions, they're very young looking, especially in live action, where you got children more often than not playing them, which here, kudos to the kids, because I think it's ideal that, elves should be young looking. So, of course, have kids play them. And I kind of wish they lean into the fact that, yeah, they understand that, now this guy, there's an accident that happened. The old Santa passed. You're the new Santa now. I kind of wish they kind of explored with Bernard being a little bothered because, or saddened a bit because he, the previous Santa was like a deep friend. Now he's gone. So now I had to be prepared to get you ready so that way you can pretty much take over so we can get things done because we got a job to do. But it's like, I don't know if we can sit with it for a minute because, Scott thinks it's all like a complete like dream or it's none of it's real. And he doesn't want to be Santa. He just want to be back home and ignore all that happened. Bernard makes friends with Charlie, gives him like a magic snow globe that shakes, and you see like a, Santa sleigh flying through the sky and disappeared into the trees, kind of thing. So Scott and Charlie sleep over. And there's a funny moment with this one elf girl and Scott. An elf girl kind of looks like a young Miranda Cosgrove to me for some reason. No, not Judy. Crap. uh, Judy the Elf, which is ironic because there was a waitress at Denny's that named Judy. But Judy the Elf, played by Paige Tamanda, who kind of looks like a young Miranda Cosgrove to me. I don't know why. It's just the eyes and the cheeks. It kind of, you look, put them side by side, you can swear these two were the same person. And it's a funny little thing where she's pretty much like counseling him in a way, trying to get his mind at ease, delivering the amazing hot cocoa, I guess, because she got right over him. It took her like thousands of years to get right. And Scott was like making a joke like, you don't look a day over, you don't look like your age, or blah blah blah. And she just comes back when I was like, thanks, but I'm seeing somebody in rapping, and that always makes me laugh every time. It's the delivery of this young girl, and I guess she never acted since then, but she did an amazing job here. I kind of wish we saw her more in the future, because she did an amazing job for this small bit. It always stuck with me, where it's like a very grown-up thing to say. It's like, I'm seeing somebody in rapping, and it's like, I don't know, they always stuck with me. They got me a laugh every time. So Scott and Charlie wake up in their house with their present delivered and everything like that, and Charlie starts telling his mom and Neil and everybody who will listen about their time at the North Pole. And now Neil and Laura is getting like concerned, where now it's like they expected Charlie to just get out of that phase and just get over it. And now he's like fully embraced this whole concept of Santa Claus, and they blame Scott, and he's pouring over into his school life when, like, for career day, all the parents showing up, and Scott coming in, and Charlie's blurting out how, like, his father is Santa Claus and everything like that. So now everybody's looking at Scott like he's feeding into this kind of delusion. And I'm thinking, like, a guy is really that big of a bad thing? Just tell the kid to tone it down a bit. He doesn't need to tell everybody about all this stuff, but just like, because it's cool to believe, it's fine. But but he's a little kid, he's excited, it's like, but Scott has to tell him down. It's like, just tell him, like, look, we're just going to keep this our little secret. But then eventually strange things starting to happen to Scott, because Bernard explains to him that, okay, you got 1 year to get your affairs in order. So by next Thanksgiving, we expect you back at the North Pole so we can get you ready for your future expeditions for the holiday seasons for the foreseeable future. Which, by the way, we don't see the Thanksgiving and him coming up to Scott. It's like, okay, time to go. We don't see that. Other things transpires, but it's like, the whole Thanksgiving part is completely ignored. It's not really something that's like a big deal, but it's something I can't help but notice every time I watch this film. It's like, wow, y'all completely skipped over Thanksgiving, did you? But Scott getting all these deliveries of list of names, starting with Amon Arsante, which is like a actor. And then he started putting on some weights that he can't get off, and his beard, no matter how much he shaves it, keeps flowing right back out, and eventually starting turning white. And then other internal changes is going through with him now that he's craving sweets, even though when he was delivering presents earlier in the film, he stopped by one girl's house, which, by the way, why is their children sitting on a couch nearby. I guess you can make the argument, well, they wanted to be there to see Santa Claus, and the parents indulging it. So like, sure, sleep on the couch near the Christmas tree, and you'll probably catch Santa Claus, even though they think like, oh, the kid's gonna be asleep the whole entire time, they won't stay out for seeing anybody. But this one little girl sees Scott come in and drinks the milk, and he is disgusted by it because he's lactose intolerant. He tells the kid to go back to sleep because at that point he's kind of annoyed. But it comes full circle later on. I really, really, really like this part, but we'll get to it in a moment. But he started craving sweets, more particular cookies and milk. So when he shows back up to work, people notice that he's like on like a few pounds. And then they, one guy showing off some new toy ideas. This, they're trying to market this new toy called the Total Tank. And since it's the Christmas season, they pitching this, picture of Santa Claus rolling down the street in this tank. Santa's gone total tank. And of course, Scott flips out. It's like, no, there's no way Santa Claus rolling down the street, in a tank. It's like, why would you do that? It was like, if you want to sell the, new Total Tank, he would. And I love Tim Allen's delivering this because he is a comedian. It's like, well, Sonny, I hope you've been good this year because Santa Claus just took down the Wilson home. It's probably not that word for word, but something like that. And it always cracked me up because it's like, yeah, because like, it is ridiculous. The fact that like, because it kind of speaks to the capitalism surrounding, Christmas, where it's like, we got to market to children these toys, and Santa Claus is always the easy spin. And it's just like, using Santa Claus image to sell, a toy like this, seems kind of off to him, even though he's realizing, okay, what am I saying here? Because all the Santa Claus stuff is like, embodying him at this point. Little by little, he's starting to, he can't help himself to do certain things that Santa Claus typically would do. Like reindeers are starting to follow him. And when he's sitting on the bench watching Charlie's soccer game, a bunch of small kids just can't help themselves but come to him and to want to sit on his lap and tell him what they want for Christmas. And he starts to just instantly know things about people, whether like the good things they did for the year and all the bad things they did for the year. So it's like, all these things are happening at once, and he's little by little, he's starting to understand, like, oh my God, maybe I am. And then now it's getting to a point where now Neil and Laura's getting worried, and they thinking like they need to like stop Scott from seeing his own kid, which you'll think it'll be like, well, it's back then. You would think it would have been like, well, I mean, more so, I mean, like today, you would think it would be like wrong because like it's not really endangering the kid, but it's just like, I guess you can say like, oh, Scott might be losing his mind a bit for some reason, but you went straight into taking him to court to, keep him from seeing his own kid because, you think he's like losing his mind, but it's like you can sit down and discuss it with him about the changes in him, and like Scott can just show him like, I shave my beard, watch how fast it grows back. I'm not kidding you. Could have done any of that stuff, but doesn't do it. So now they think he's crazy. So now he can't see his kid. Then one night he just, knowing that he'll have to, because it's a year passed at this point, and now he's just like, can't but wear red garments because red is the color of Santa Claus. He wants to talk with his son one last time before he goes off to the North Pole because he knows this is going to happen. Bernard shows up, and all three head out to the North Pole, and now Neil and Laura think like, oh, Scott kidnapped the kid. And it's like, you could not leave a note or tell the kid to stay behind because you don't want, them to suspect nothing. But of course they do suspect something. So now there's a APB out on Scott Calvin. And now, they're back in North Pole. They're gearing up for Santa's ride to deliver presents. And of course, Comet gives a present to a rope as a present to Scott, because through this montage of getting prepared, he keep asking like, what happens if I fall off the roof? Just because he doesn't want the same thing to happen to him that the previous Santa, what happened to the previous Santa. So a cool moment where like Comet delivers a rope to him, so that way, worst comes to worst, he has something to like keep him from falling off and hurting himself. So Santa, now fully embracing Santa, he goes to deliver the presents, and he stops off at the little girl's house that he previously visited a year ago. And he says hi to her, and he eats the cookie and drinks the milk, and he thinks like, oh god, this is kind of sour. And it's a very sweet moment. To this day, I consider it a sweet moment where she explains to him like, oh, it's soy. Last year you told me that you was lactose intolerant. And the look on Tim Allen's face, it was very cool. I was like, I did say that, didn't I? That was very sweet of you. Because the fact that this little girl, you can tell how good she is, how good of a person she is. The fact that she, for an entire year, she kept in mind that he said he was lactose intolerant. So she made a note to make sure they get soy milk for Santa because he's lactose intolerant. He said he was lactose. That was a very, very sweet moment. That's like, God, I don't think many people bring that up, because I thought it was like, oh, that's very nice. A nice little girl. The fact that she remembers something like that. And kids that young don't remember a lot of stuff that they do, half the things that they do. But the fact that like this is something that's very important to her, in the fact that she is good, not only good all year apparently, but she want to make sure it's like I'm going to make sure Santa has like not any issues. So that's something I wanted to really highlight. Then he stopped off at Laura's house, where the cops were waiting, and they completely ambushed him and hauled him away. And it's like, you did it in front of like a lot of people, especially kids. And it's like, okay, you completely scarred these kids for life because they're witnessing Santa being arrested in front of their eyes. And so Charlie and some SWAT team L's come rescue him, eventually pretty much blowing like his whole supposed secret identity to the world, which all intents and purposes kind of like forgotten about in the next film. It's not like Santa neuralized them or anything like that, but it's just like it's all but just forgotten. But Scott shows back up at Laura's house, explains to Charlie that he needs to stay here with his mom and Neil, because I can't keep you all to myself. That'll be selfish. Your mom and Neil needs you too. And like, I like to thank you, Charlie, because you believed in me and you made me Santa Claus. Now there's a bunch of kids out in the world who need me, and I can't let them down. So they have a nice little moment. And before Scott takes off, he leaves a gift to Charlie, but also to Laura and Neil, this little Dayton board game for her, and a Winnie Oscar Mayer whistle for Neil, because halfway through the movie they talk about like their childhoods, which I'm shocked they never had this kind of talk about their past, or their childhoods. But this is why they stopped believing in Santa Claus, which is typical for a lot of kids when they don't in these movies, they don't get what they asked for, where she won this dating board game as a kid, and he wanted that weenie whistle, and it's just like they never gotten it, and so that left them disillusioned about Santa Claus, and they forced themselves to grow up to probably faster than they probably wanted to. Who knows why they never got it? Clearly, it was like a Santa Claus. Maybe they were bad that year. Who knows? But they managed to get the gifts they always wanted. Now, reuniting that belief again. Of course, it also helps the fact that they know Santa Claus is a thing because Scott is. And the movie ends with like Santa Claus delivering the rest of the presents to the world. And this is still like a very classic movie. I think this is probably the best out of the Santa Claus films. I haven't seen the TV show, but I don't really want to. But like the first Santa Claus movie, still the best one. But I think Saturday I will cover the other two Santa Claus films, and it is progressively worse. But I want to do it because I really want to like knock out these 3 this year. But let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube what you think of the Santa Claus films. Who's your favorite like Santa Claus in pop culture? Because I think Tim Allen is my ideal, like who I envision as Santa Claus in my from my childhood. But who is yours? And look forward to more content down the line for more Christmas movie reviews for the month of December. And later on tonight, I will probably in like an hour, I will be playing more of Diablo 4. But I will see you all soon. Like and subscribe, share this with your friends. Take care.